I never thought my biggest problem senior year would be asking the most intimidating girl at Westbridge Academy to pretend to date me. But by Thursday morning, I was standing outside the student theater with a plan that sounded ridiculous even in my own head. Just to confirm, Noah said, staring at me like I had completely lost my mind, "You're asking Claire Valmont to be your fake girlfriend?" "Yes." "For one day?" "Yes." "And you think this is going to work?" I looked at the theater doors. "No." Noah stared. That is somehow the least reassuring answer possible. I understood why he thought it was crazy. Claire Valmont was not someone people casually asked favors from. She was the creative director of the school theater program. Not the loud kind of leader who demanded attention. The opposite. She was quiet, precise, and terrifyingly good at knowing when something was wrong. Actors changed their lines when she gave feedback. Teachers listened when she suggested improvements. Even seniors who had known her for years still became nervous when she looked at them and said, "Try again." But my problem wasn't that Claire was intimidating. My problem was that I needed someone who could convince people. In 2 days, Westbridge Academy was holding the annual alumni showcase. It wasn't a competition. It wasn't a ceremony. It was a student performance night where graduates, families, and local organizations came to watch different student projects. For most people, it was just another school event. For me, it was important. I had spent the entire year building a small sound design portfolio. Not because I wanted to become famous. Not because I wanted attention. I wanted to study audio production after graduation. I loved the part of storytelling most people never noticed. The background. The details. The sounds that made a scene feel real. The problem was my application required a recommendation from someone who had seen me work under pressure. And the showcase was my chance. A local production company would be attending. If they liked my work, I might get an internship interview. Except there was one complication. My former project partner, Olivia Harper, was also presenting. That alone wouldn't have mattered. Olivia was talented. We had worked together for months. The problem was that after our partnership ended, she had started telling people I had only succeeded because she handled the important parts. I didn't hate Olivia. I didn't want revenge. I just didn't want one night of rumors deciding whether people took my work seriously. The showcase coordinator had already warned me. If there is personal drama between presenters, keep it away from the event. Which was fair. But when Noah told me Olivia had been telling people she was going to explain what really happened during the showcase after party, I knew I needed to do something. Not because I cared what everyone thought. Because I cared about the opportunity. And that was when Noah suggested the impossible. Bring someone. Someone? Someone who makes it obvious you're not part of some revenge drama. I laughed. You mean fake date someone? Noah shrugged. It's stupid. Yes. But? I looked toward the theater. But it might work. Which was how I ended up standing in front of Claire Valmont. She was alone inside the theater, checking the lighting setup. The empty stage lights reflected in her dark hair as she adjusted notes on her clipboard. Claire. She looked up. Ethan. She knew my name. That surprised me. You know me? You helped fix the audio issue during the fall play. I smiled. You remember that? You repaired a broken microphone 5 minutes before opening night. That sounds dramatic when you say it. It was dramatic. Fair. She put down the clipboard. What do you need? Direct. Of course. I took a breath. I need a favor. Claire waited. Not impatiently. Just waiting. I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for one day. Silence. Not an angry silence. A processing silence. Claire blinked once. Why? I expected that question. So I explained. The showcase. The rumors. The situation with Olivia. The recommendation opportunity. When I finished, Claire was quiet. You want me to help convince people you are not involved in unnecessary drama? Yes. By creating a different kind of drama. I paused. That sounds worse when you say it. It is worse. I sighed. I know. For the first time, I saw the smallest hint of amusement on her face. You know this is a terrible plan. Yes. And you still came. Yes. Why? I thought about giving her a simple answer. Because I needed help. Because Noah suggested it. Because I had no other option. But those weren't the real reasons. Because I know you won't make it about yourself. That surprised her. Explain. You're not the type of person who would pretend to care about something just because people are watching. Claire looked at me carefully. That is a very specific observation. I pay attention. She looked down at her clipboard. For a moment, I thought she would say no. Honestly, I expected it. Then she asked, when? I blinked. What? When is this fake relationship supposed to happen? I stared. You're saying yes? Claire tilted her head. I haven't answered that yet. Okay. I am asking questions. Right. Because if I agree to something, I want to understand what I am agreeing to. That made sense. How about Saturday? The showcase. Yes. One day? One day. She thought about it. Then she looked at me. Fine. I almost couldn't believe it. Seriously? Yes. Why? Claire picked up her clipboard again. Because you asked me directly instead of trying to manipulate the situation. I smiled. That's a surprisingly nice reason. There is another reason. I waited. She looked at me. You looked like you really needed someone. That answer caught me off guard. Not because it was romantic. Because Claire noticed. And somehow, that was more surprising. Thank you. She nodded. However, there was the serious Claire. Yes? If we do this, there are rules. Rules? Yes. I smiled. Of course there are. Claire ignored that. Rule 1, no lying beyond the situation itself. Meaning? People can believe we are together. She looked at me. But we are not creating fake stories about our lives. I nodded. Okay. Rule 2, if either of us becomes uncomfortable, we stop. Okay. Rule 3, after the showcase, we talk honestly. I raised an eyebrow. About the fake relationship? About everything. I didn't know why that last rule felt different. Maybe because Claire wasn't treating this like an act. She was treating it like an agreement between two people. Saturday came faster than I expected. The showcase was held in the main theater. Parents filled the seats. Alumni walked around with name badges. Local organizations arrived early. And then Claire walked in beside me. Immediately, the room changed. Not because she was trying to get attention. She wasn't. Because everyone knew Claire Valmont didn't do anything without a reason. Noah saw us from across the lobby. His eyes widened. Claire leaned slightly closer. Your friend looks shocked. He is. Is that a problem? No. I looked at her. It's just strange seeing you do something unexpected. Claire smiled faintly. Then today might be educational. Before I could respond, Olivia appeared. She looked at Claire, then at me. The smile on her face disappeared. Well, she said, this is unexpected. And I knew immediately. The fake girlfriend plan had just become much more complicated. Olivia Harper had always been good at controlling a room. That was probably why we worked well together before everything changed. She knew how to speak. She knew how to convince people. She knew exactly what expression to make when someone important was watching. And right now, she was looking at Claire. Not me. Claire. Claire Valmont? Olivia repeated. Claire remained calm. Yes. Olivia looked between us. I didn't know you two were friends. That was technically true. We weren't friends. Not yet. We worked together sometimes. Claire answered. Simple. Accurate. Olivia smiled. That's interesting. I knew that tone. It was the same tone she used before making a comment that sounded harmless but wasn't. Anyway, Olivia continued, good luck tonight. She looked at me. Ethan. Then she walked away. I watched her leave. She knows. Claire said. I looked at her. What? She knows something is different. I sighed. Yeah. Are you worried? I thought about it. A little. Why? Because Olivia is good at making people question things. Claire nodded. Then don't give her something questionable. I smiled. You say that like it's easy. It is. I looked at her. Really? Yes. Why? Because the truth is usually less complicated than trying to manage everyone's opinion. That sounded like something Claire would say. And annoyingly, it was probably right. The showcase started 20 minutes later. Claire and I walked through the theater lobby together. I expected people to stare. They did. But something surprised me. Nobody looked at Claire like they were shocked she was with me. They looked at me like they were shocked I was someone Claire chose to stand beside. That difference bothered me. Not because of Claire. Because it reminded me of exactly what I was trying to avoid. Being defined by someone else. You're uncomfortable. Claire said. I looked at her. How do you know? You stopped looking at the displays. I glanced around. She was right. The lobby was filled with student work. Photography. Music projects. Art installations. Things I normally would have studied. Instead, I was thinking about everyone watching. You're distracted. She said. Sorry. Claire frowned slightly. Why are you apologizing? I don't know. Don't. The answer was immediate. I looked at her. Don't apologize for having thoughts. That was unexpected. Most people tried to fix nervousness. Claire didn't. She just made space for it. Okay. I said. Okay. She repeated. And somehow that felt like approval. The opening performances began. The theater lights dimmed. Students took the stage. I should have been focusing on the event. Instead, I kept noticing small things about Claire. She didn't pretend to be impressed by everything. She actually paid attention. When someone made a mistake, she didn't laugh. She looked concerned. When a younger student forgot a line, Claire quietly walked backstage and helped them recover. She wasn't cold. She was controlled. There was a difference. During the break, we went backstage. You're good at this, I said. Claire looked at me. At what? Making people feel less nervous. She seemed surprised. I am? Yes. I don't think most people would describe me that way. Most people don't pay attention. The words came out naturally. Claire looked at me for a second longer than usual. Then she looked away. Maybe. Before I could say anything else, the showcase coordinator approached us. Ethan, Claire. We turned. Can I ask you both for a quick favor? What happened? I asked. One of the alumni guests wants to hear about the sound design project. I nodded. Sure. Then the coordinator looked at Claire. And since you're already here together, maybe you could explain how your projects connect? I froze. Because they didn't. Not exactly. Claire noticed. She answered before I could. We can explain our own projects. The coordinator smiled. Even better. After they left, I looked at Claire. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Make sure we didn't pretend too much. Claire looked confused. Why would we pretend more than necessary? That question stayed with me. Because I realized something. Claire wasn't trying to become my girlfriend for a day. She was helping me without losing herself. We met the alumni guest 15 minutes later. He asked about my sound design portfolio. For the first time that evening, I forgot about the fake relationship. I talked about recording techniques, how background noise changed emotions, how silence could be part of a story. And Claire listened. Really listened. When the conversation ended, the guest gave me his card. Send me your portfolio. I thanked him. After he left, I stared at the card. Claire smiled. You got what you wanted. I looked at her. Yeah. Then I realized something. I had the opportunity, the conversation, the chance to be judged by my own work, not by the rumor. Thank you, I said. Claire shook her head. You did the work. But you helped. Yes. That matters. She thought about that. Maybe. The evening continued. And surprisingly, pretending became easier. Not because we were acting better. Because we stopped trying to act. We talked naturally. We laughed. We answered questions. The strange part was that I started forgetting other people were watching. Near the end of the event, Olivia approached again. This time, she wasn't smiling. Ethan, can we talk? I looked at Claire. She immediately understood. I'll be nearby. Not leaving. Not interfering. Just giving me space. That was exactly what I needed. What do you want? I asked. Olivia looked at Claire. You really expect people to believe this? I frowned. Believe what? That she suddenly wants to date you. There it was. The comment. The one I expected. I stayed quiet. Olivia continued. Ethan, I know you. You don't need this. I looked at her. Need what? This. She gestured toward the room. The attention. I almost laughed. Because she was misunderstanding the entire thing. I don't need attention. Then why do this? I thought about it. The answer was different now. At the beginning, I wanted people to stop thinking something false. Now, I wanted to know something. Whether something unexpected could become real. But I wasn't ready to say that. So I said, because I made a choice. Olivia looked surprised. Before she could respond, Claire walked back over. Ethan. I turned. Yes? The next performance is starting. Then she looked at Olivia. Nice to see you. Polite. Calm. Final. Olivia left. I looked at Claire. You saved me. No. What? I interrupted. I smiled. That sounds like saving. No, she said. Saving would mean you couldn't handle it. I stopped. Because she was right. Claire wasn't treating me like someone who needed rescuing. She was treating me like someone capable. The showcase ended an hour later. Outside the theater, the lights from the building reflected on the empty sidewalk. One day. That was what we agreed. One day pretending. I looked at Claire. So, yes? Did we successfully complete the fake relationship? She thought about it. Technically. Technically? Yes. Why only technically? Claire looked at me. Because I think we stopped pretending somewhere in the middle. I froze. Before I could ask what she meant, her phone rang. She checked the message. Her expression changed. What happened? She looked at me. The showcase committee changed the schedule. Okay. The alumni guests want a follow-up presentation next week. I nodded. That's good, right? Yes. Then she hesitated. But they want the two of us to present together. And suddenly, the one-day fake relationship had created a new problem. Because now we had to decide whether the thing we started pretending to be was something we were willing to continue showing the world. The strange thing about fake relationships is that everyone assumes the difficult part is convincing other people. They are wrong. The difficult part is convincing yourself. For the next week, Claire and I had to prepare the follow-up presentation for the alumni committee. According to everyone else, it made perfect sense. The sound design project. The theater production. 2 student projects connected through storytelling. According to me, it was complicated. Because the original plan had been simple. One day. One event. A favor. Now we had meetings. A presentation. People expecting us to work together. And every time someone said, "You two make a great team," I had no idea whether they were talking about our projects or something else. "You're overthinking again," Claire said. We were sitting in the theater after school. She was reviewing the presentation outline. I was supposed to be checking the audio samples. Instead, I had been staring at the same paragraph for 10 minutes. I might be. You are. I smiled. You're very supportive. I'm accurate. Those are different things. Not always. I laughed. That was becoming a problem. Before Claire, I thought the hardest part about being around someone like her would be feeling nervous. It wasn't. The hard part was that she was easier to talk to than I expected. The presentation was about how different forms of storytelling work together. My part focused on sound. Claire's focused on visual direction. The funny thing was that we approached stories completely differently. I noticed what people ignored. The background noise. The small details. The things that made moments feel real. Claire noticed structure. The emotion behind an image. The reason a person chose one angle instead of another. She planned. I explored. Normally, those two styles would have caused problems. Somehow, they didn't. You changed the order, Claire said. I looked up. What? The audio section. Oh, I moved it because the story made more sense that way. She studied the outline. You didn't tell me. I was going to. When? Before the presentation. Claire looked at me. That is not a good time to mention a major change. I smiled. There's the director. She tried not to smile. It didn't work. The next afternoon, we practiced in the empty theater. No audience. No rumors. No pressure. Just us. Claire stood on stage reading her section. I watched the timing. Stop, I said. She looked up. What? You're rushing. I am not. You are. Why? Because you're trying to sound confident instead of actually being confident. Silence. I immediately wondered if I had gone too far. But Claire didn't get angry. She thought about it. That is annoyingly specific. I know. And correct. I smiled. Thank you. She stepped off the stage. Your turn. I looked confused. My turn? Yes. What? You do the same thing. I laughed. I do not. You do. How? You pretend you don't care what people think. I became quiet. Because she was right. I don't want people deciding who I am. I said. I know. But sometimes you spend so much energy proving you don't care that you forget you're allowed to care. That hit harder than I expected. Because Claire had noticed something I hadn't admitted. I wasn't just worried about the rumor. I was worried about being underestimated. You're good at this. I said. At what? Understanding people. She looked away. No. I smiled. You are. I'm good at observing. That's basically the same thing. No. She looked back at me. Observing is noticing what someone does. A pause. Understanding is knowing why. I remembered that. Because that was exactly what I had been doing wrong with Claire. Everyone observed her. Few people understood her. A few days before the presentation, something unexpected happened. The theater advisor called me aside. Ethan, I wanted to ask you something. Sure. Are you comfortable presenting with Claire? The question surprised me. Yes. The advisor nodded. I'm asking because I know people have been talking. I sighed. About us? Yes. I expected another warning. Another reminder to avoid distractions. Instead, she said, I just want to make sure you're not doing something because you feel pressured. That question stayed with me. Because it was exactly the opposite of what I expected. Everyone assumed Claire had influence over me. Nobody asked if I had chosen this. I'm okay. I said. Are you sure? I looked toward the stage. Yes. And this time, I meant it. That evening, Claire and I met outside the theater. The sun was setting. The campus was almost empty. Can I ask you something? I said. Yes. Why did you agree that day? Claire knew what I meant. The fake girlfriend request. She looked at the ground. I told you. You gave me part of the answer. She was quiet. Then she said, because you asked me like I was a person. I waited. That sounds strange. It doesn't. Claire continued. Most people approach me because they want something. A favor? An opportunity. A connection. She looked at me. But you asked for help. I understood the difference. A favor was about getting something. Help was about trusting someone. Was that the only reason? I asked. Claire smiled slightly. You ask difficult questions. I know. She looked at the theater behind us. No, it wasn't the only reason. I waited. I wanted to know what it would feel like. What? To do something without knowing exactly how it would end. That surprised me. Because Claire Valmont was the person who always seemed to know the next step. You were curious? Yes. About me? She looked at me. Yes. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Noah. Ethan, have you seen the comments? What comments? The school forum. I opened the link he sent. A new discussion had appeared. Is Ethan only presenting because Claire is protecting him? I stared at the screen. The old problem had returned. But this time, something was different. Before, I wanted the rumor gone. Now, I wanted to decide what mattered more. And Claire looked at my face and immediately understood. What happened? I showed her the phone. She read it. Then she said something I didn't expect. Don't answer. I looked at her. What? Don't explain yourself. But they're wrong. Yes. Then why? Claire looked at me. Because if we spend all our time proving we are not what people think. She paused. We let them choose what we become. I looked at her. And for the first time, I realized something. Maybe the fake relationship was never the dangerous part. Maybe the dangerous part was letting everyone else decide whether it was fake or real. The next morning, I expected the comments to get worse. They didn't. That was somehow more confusing. The school forum was usually where every small thing became a big thing. Someone changed a club rule. Someone argued about a sports game. Someone posted a picture from lunch. Within hours, everyone had an opinion. But the discussion about Claire and me stayed quiet. At first, I thought people were waiting. Then I realized something. Claire was right. If we didn't react, there was nothing new for people to discuss. Of course, that didn't mean I suddenly stopped caring. I still saw the comments. I still noticed the way some students looked at me. I still heard the occasional. Claire helped him get noticed. But now I had a different question. Was I upset because it was true? Or because I was afraid it could become true? You're doing it again, Claire said. We were sitting in the theater during lunch. She was reviewing the presentation notes. I was staring at my phone. Doing what? Reading things that make you unhappy. I put my phone down. That obvious? Yes. You're terrifying. No. She looked at me. I'm observant. I laughed. That is exactly what a terrifying person would say. For a second, Claire smiled. Then she became serious. Ethan. Yeah? Do you want to cancel the presentation? The question surprised me. No. Are you sure? Yes. Why? I thought about it. Because I believed in the project. Because I cared about my work. Because canceling would mean letting people who didn't know me make decisions for me. I don't want to quit something important because people misunderstand it. Claire nodded. Good. I laughed. You really love that word. Maybe. The next 2 days were the busiest we had all semester. The alumni presentation required more preparation than expected. The theater needed updated lighting. The sound system needed testing. The student projects needed to be organized into one story. And for the first time, Claire and I weren't pretending. We were just working. That was when I noticed something. Claire was different when nobody was watching. During meetings, she was focused, precise, professional. But when we were alone in the theater, she hummed quietly while organizing cables. She made jokes about her own mistakes. She forgot where she placed things and blamed the objects. "You lost your notebook again," I said. Claire looked around. "I did not lose it. It's on the piano." She looked, then picked it up. "I knew that." I smiled. "Of course you did." She sat beside me. "You enjoy proving me wrong." "Only when it happens naturally." "That happens often?" "More than you'd like." She looked offended, but she was smiling. The strange thing was that our fake relationship became less important the more time we spent together. At the beginning, I worried about convincing people. Now I was forgetting there was anything to convince them of. Until Olivia came back. She found me after rehearsal. "Ethan." I stopped. "What?" She looked uncomfortable. That was unusual. "I want to talk." I almost said no. Not because I hated her. Because I knew exactly what kind of conversation this could become. But I stayed. "What about?" She looked toward the theater. "The presentation." "What about it?" "I heard the alumni group is impressed." "Okay." She hesitated. Then, "Are you sure Claire is the reason they noticed?" I frowned. "What?" "I'm asking seriously." There was no anger in her voice. That made it more confusing. "You think she is?" "No." That surprised me. Olivia sighed. "I think everyone else does." I waited. She continued. "And I think you're starting to believe them." That hit harder than I expected, because it was exactly what I had been afraid of. "I don't." Olivia looked at me. "Then why do you keep worrying about it?" I had no answer. "I know we ended badly," she said, "but I never thought you were incapable." That was the first kind thing she had said to me in months. "Then why did you tell people I only handled the easy parts?" She looked away. "Because I was angry." "Angry?" "Yes." "About what?" She was quiet. "Because after we stopped working together, everyone asked about you." I stared. "That's why." I know it was unfair. For the first time, Olivia admitted something without trying to defend herself. And strangely, that helped. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. But because I realized something. People's opinions were often built from incomplete stories. Including mine. When I returned to the theater, Claire was waiting. "You talked to Olivia." It wasn't a question. "Yes." "What happened?" I told her. She listened. No interruption. No judgment. When I finished, she said, "That must have been difficult." I nodded. "Yeah. Are you okay?" I smiled. "You're asking if I'm okay?" "Yes." "Not how the situation should be solved." "No." I looked at her. That was new. Claire Valmont was not trying to fix the problem. She was just standing with me while I handled it. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Yes." "Do you ever get tired of being the person everyone expects to have the answer?" Claire was quiet. Then, "Yes." I waited. She rarely admitted things like that. "Then why do you do it?" She looked at the empty stage. "Because I don't know who I am when I'm not useful." I didn't expect that. Not from Claire. Because everyone thought she was confident. But confidence and certainty were not the same. "You know that's not true, right?" I said. "What?" "You're still you when you're not solving something." She looked at me. "You believe that?" "Yes." "Why?" I smiled. "Because I've seen you lose your notebook twice this week." For a second, she looked shocked. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. The next day was the presentation. The theater was full. The alumni committee sat in the front row. The same people who had once only seen Claire as the school's most impressive student were now watching two different people explain something together. Before we walked on stage, Claire stopped me. "Ethan." "Yeah?" "If this goes badly." "It won't." She smiled. "You didn't let me finish." "Sorry." "If it does go badly, it does not change what we made." I nodded. Then she added, "And if it goes well, it does not belong to one person." We walked onto the stage. The lights turned on. And for the first time since this started, I didn't think about the fake girlfriend. I didn't think about the rumor. I didn't think about who people expected us to be. I just talked about my work. And Claire talked about hers. Together. The presentation ended with applause. Real applause. The alumni guests stayed afterward to ask questions. One of them approached me. "Ethan, your sound design approach is interesting." I thanked him. Then he turned to Claire. "You two work well together." Claire smiled. "Yes." Simple. No explanation. No need to define it. Later, when everyone left, We stood outside the theater. One day, I said. Claire looked at me. What? That was supposed to be one day. She smiled. I remember. And now? She looked toward the empty campus. Now I think we have a different question. What question? Claire looked back at me. Are we still pretending? I didn't answer immediately, because that was the question I had been avoiding. Not because I didn't know, because I did. Before I could say anything, Claire's phone rang. She checked the message. Her expression changed. What happened? I asked. She looked at me. The theater department received an invitation. From who? A regional youth arts organization. That's good. Yes. Then she hesitated. They want Claire Valmont to attend as the student representative. I smiled. That's amazing. She didn't smile back. Ethan. What? They don't want the project. A pause. They want me. And suddenly, the thing that had brought us together was forcing us to face the one question we hadn't answered. Who were we when we weren't standing on the same stage? The invitation should have been good news. That was the strange part. Everything about it was impressive. The Regional Youth Arts Organization, the student representative position, the chance to meet other young artists from different schools. Any other person would have been excited. Claire should have been excited. But she wasn't. You don't want to go, I said. We were sitting on the empty theater stage after school. The same stage where we had practiced our presentation. The same stage where everyone had seen us work together. Claire looked at the invitation again. I do want to go. But? She was quiet. I don't know if I want to go as myself or as the person everyone expects me to be. I understood immediately. Because that was the same problem we had been dealing with since the beginning. People saw Claire Valmont, the talented student, the perfect organizer, the person who could represent the school. But Claire wasn't sure if they were choosing her, or the version of her they had created. You should go, I said. She looked at me. That was quick. Yes. Why? Because you want to. She studied me. And what about us? There it was. The question neither of us wanted to say. I looked around the empty theater. For weeks, this room had been where we solved problems. The showcase, the presentation, the rumors. But this wasn't a problem we could solve. You going doesn't change anything. Claire looked down. That sounds like something you want to believe. I frowned. What does that mean? She took a breath. It means you're saying the right thing. But I don't know if you actually feel it. That hurt. Not because she was accusing me. Because she was right to ask. I had spent so much time worrying about being seen as Claire's boyfriend. I had never asked myself what happened if Claire moved forward without me. I don't want you to stay because of me, I said. Claire looked at me. I know. I mean it. I know. Then why do you look worried? She looked at the floor. Because I don't want to become someone who only feels safe when someone is standing beside me. That was the most honest thing Claire had said. And maybe the most important. Because I realized something. The goal was never to prove we belonged together. The goal was to become two people who could choose each other without needing the other person to stay still. The next week changed. Claire prepared for the regional arts event. I prepared for my internship interview. We were both busy. And for the first time, we weren't constantly working on the same thing. At first, it felt strange. I noticed when Claire wasn't in the theater. She noticed when I wasn't editing in the media room. But slowly, something happened. We started sharing our days instead of building our days around each other. You look tired, Claire said one afternoon. I looked up from my laptop. You too. That's not an answer. It's an observation. She smiled. You're becoming annoying. I learned from the best. The internship interview was approaching. I had spent months building my portfolio. But suddenly, I was nervous. Not because I doubted my work. Because I realized how much I wanted it. You're thinking too much, Claire said. We were walking through the hallway after school. That's your line. I know. That's unfair. Why? Because now I know how it feels. She smiled. Good. I laughed. There it is. Before the interview, Claire did something unexpected. She didn't help me practice. She didn't review my portfolio. She didn't give advice. Instead, she asked, what do you want them to know about you? I thought about that. Not what sounded impressive. Not what would get approval. What mattered. I want them to know I care about stories that people ignore. Claire nodded. Then start there. Simple. But exactly what I needed. The day of my interview, Claire left for the regional arts event. For the first time since we met, we were going in completely different directions. And somehow, I felt okay. My interview went better than expected. The interviewer watched my documentary samples, asked questions, challenged my choices. And when it ended, he said, "You understand that sound is not just decoration." I smiled. Yes, it tells people what they should feel. When I walked outside, I checked my phone. A message from Claire. "How did it go?" I smiled. "Good. I think." Her reply came quickly. "You always say I think when you already know the answer." I laughed. Then another message arrived. "My presentation starts soon." I typed, "You'll be great." I almost deleted it. It sounded too simple. But I sent it. Her reply came a minute later. "Thank you." Then, "I'm nervous." I stared at the message. Because Claire admitting nervousness still felt like something rare. I replied, "Good." She immediately responded, "Did you just use my word?" I smiled. Maybe. That evening, we called. Not because something was wrong. Not because there was a problem to solve. Just because we wanted to talk. "How is it?" I asked. Claire was quiet. "Different." "Good different?" "Yes." "What happened?" She told me about the event. The other students. The questions. The fact that nobody there knew her reputation. And? I asked. And I realized something. What? They weren't expecting me to be perfect. That surprised her. Because she had spent years believing her value came from being prepared. What did they expect? She smiled. They expected me to share something. I understood. Not perform. Not prove. Share. That's good. I said. She laughed. "You're using my word now." "I know." A week later, Claire returned. The first thing she did was come to the theater. I found her there, standing on the empty stage. "You missed this place." I said. She nodded. "Yes." "Why?" She looked around. "Because this is where I stopped pretending I had everything figured out." I smiled. "That sounds important." "It is." Then she looked at me. "Ethan." "Yeah? I need to ask you something." "What?" She hesitated. "Was there ever a moment when you stopped thinking this was fake?" The question caught me off guard. Because I had avoided asking myself the same thing. I looked at Claire, the girl I originally asked to pretend. The girl who had helped me without trying to own my success. The girl who had learned to step forward without needing someone beside her. And I realized the answer was simple. Yes. Claire's expression changed. "When?" I smiled slightly. "I don't know." "That is not very helpful." "I know." She waited. Then I continued. "Maybe when you stopped trying to convince everyone else." A pause. "And started being honest with me." Claire looked away. For once, she didn't have an immediate response. Then her phone rang. She checked the message. Her expression changed. "What happened?" She looked at me. "The arts organization wants me to represent the school at their final event." "That's amazing." She nodded. "Yes." Then she looked down. "But the final event is the same night as your internship showcase." I froze. Because suddenly, the thing we had both worked so hard for was happening at the same time. Two opportunities, two dreams, and one unavoidable question. For a few minutes, neither of us said anything. The funny thing was that months ago, I thought the hardest part of being with Claire would be convincing people. Then I thought the hardest part would be admitting we weren't pretending anymore. I was wrong. The hardest part was realizing that caring about someone did not mean every difficult choice would disappear. Claire looked at the two invitations on her phone. Her final arts event. My internship showcase. Same night. Different cities. "You should go." I said. She looked up immediately. "No." I blinked. "No? No. Why?" "Because you said that too quickly." I smiled slightly. "You noticed?" "Yes." Of course she did. She knew exactly what I was doing. I was trying to solve the problem before it became uncomfortable. "You want me to tell you to choose your opportunity?" Claire said. I didn't answer. "That way you don't have to feel guilty." "That's not true, isn't it?" I opened my mouth, then stopped. Because maybe it was partly true. I wanted Claire to succeed. I really did. But a small part of me was afraid of being the person who said, "It's okay," while secretly hoping she would choose me. I don't want either of us to make a sacrifice and call it love. Claire said. I looked at her. "That sounds very serious." "It is." "You've been thinking about this?" "Yes." "When?" She looked away. "Since the first day you asked me to pretend." That surprised me. "The first day?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I knew something." "What?" Claire looked at me. that if we ever became something real, the hardest part would not be starting. A pause. It would be learning how to keep choosing each other without giving up who we are. I didn't have an answer, because that was exactly the problem. The next week was uncomfortable. Not because we were fighting. We weren't. Actually, that almost made it harder. If we were angry, it would be simple. If someone was wrong, we could fix it. But neither of us was wrong. We just had two important things happening at the same time. "You're avoiding me," Claire said. I looked up from my laptop. We were in the school media room. "I'm not." "You are." "How?" "You answered my message with good luck." I looked confused. That's supportive. It is also what you say to someone before leaving. I sighed. I don't know what to say. That was the honest answer. Claire sat down beside me. "Try." I smiled. "You make everything sound easy." "No." She shook her head. "I make things sound possible." That was different. "I'm scared," I admitted. Claire looked at me. "Of what?" I looked at my laptop. "That one of us will leave and everything will change." Claire was quiet. Then she said, "Everything will change." I looked at her. That is not comforting. It is honest. I laughed softly. "You really are impossible." "Maybe." Then she continued, "But change is not the same as losing something." That was the thing I was slowly learning about Claire. She never promised things would stay exactly the same. She promised we could handle what came next. The night before the two events, we met outside the theater. The campus was quiet. Claire was holding her invitation. I was holding mine. Two pieces of paper. Two futures. "This feels familiar," I said. She smiled. "How?" "The first day I asked you to be my fake girlfriend." She laughed. "That feels like a long time ago." "It does." "What changed?" I thought about it. Everything. But the biggest thing was simple. "I don't need you to prove you choose me." Claire looked at me. "Good." I laughed. "There it is." She smiled. "And I don't need you to stay to prove you care." The next morning, we went separate ways. Claire went to the regional arts event. I went to the internship showcase. For the first time since this started, we were not a team. And somehow, that was okay. My showcase went well. The production company asked questions. They listened. They watched my work. At the end, one of the directors approached me. "You understand that sound is part of the story?" I smiled. "Yes. Most students focus on what people see." He nodded. "You notice what they feel." It was exactly the kind of opportunity one had wanted. Not because it made me important. Because it meant someone understood my work. Afterward, I checked my phone. No message from Claire yet. I wasn't worried. At least, I told myself I wasn't. 3 hours later, my phone finally buzzed. It was Claire. "Are you free to talk?" I smiled. "Of course." A call started. The first thing I heard was her laugh. Not a polite laugh. A real one. "She went well?" I asked. "Yes." I smiled. "I knew it." "Did you?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're good." She was quiet. Then, "Ethan?" "Yeah." I almost didn't go. I sat up. "What?" I thought about skipping it. "Why?" "Because I was afraid." That surprised me. "Afraid of what?" Claire was silent for a moment. "Of proving everyone right." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "That people would say I cared more about opportunities than people." I understood. Claire had spent years being judged by what she achieved. Now she was afraid success would make people question her heart. "Claire." "Yes?" "Did you enjoy it?" A pause. "Yes." "Were you proud?" "Yes." "Then you made the right choice." She was quiet. Then she said, "You know what I realized today?" "What?" "The fake girlfriend thing was easier than this." I laughed. "Really?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because pretending only required one day." A pause. "Choosing someone while still choosing yourself is harder." I smiled. Because that was the most honest thing either of us had said. The next Monday, we returned to school. Everyone expected a story. They expected one of us to have chosen the other. They expected a dramatic moment. They didn't get one. Instead, Claire and I walked into the hallway separately. Not because we were hiding. Because we had classes on opposite sides of the building. Later, we met for lunch. Normal. Simple. Real. That afternoon, Claire found me near the theater. "I have something." She handed me a folded paper. "What is this?" "Something I wrote after the showcase." I opened it. It was not a love letter. Not a confession. It was a note about the theater project. About the people involved. about what she learned. At the bottom, there was one sentence. The best partnerships are not the ones where two people become the same. They are the ones where two people become more themselves. I looked at her. You wrote this? Yes. It's good. She smiled. Thank you. Then she looked at me. Ethan. Yeah? Do you still think we started with a fake relationship? I thought about it. The request. The kiss. The showcase. The choices. No. Why? I smiled. Because the fake part was the easiest part. She looked at me. And the real part? I answered honestly. The real part is the thing we keep choosing. Claire smiled. And for the first time, I realized something. The day I asked Claire Valmont to be my fake girlfriend, I thought I was asking her to help me solve a problem. I had no idea she would become the person who taught me how to stop running from difficult choices. After everything that happened, people expected something dramatic. I could tell. At Westbridge Academy, people loved clear endings. A competition had a winner. A performance had applause. A rumor had a correction. But real life rarely worked that way. Claire and I didn't suddenly become the couple everyone imagined. We didn't start walking around holding hands every second. We didn't turn every hallway into a public announcement. We just became more honest. And strangely, that was harder to explain. Are you two together? A freshman asked me one afternoon. I looked up from my equipment bag. The old version of me would have felt nervous. The old version of me would have wondered what answer would make everyone comfortable. Instead, I smiled. Yes. The freshman nodded. Okay. Then she walked away. That was it. No dramatic reaction. No crowd. No big moment. And I realized something. Maybe the most important changes were the ones that didn't need an audience. A few weeks later, the theater department started preparing the next semester schedule. The alumni showcase was over. The regional arts event was finished. My internship interview had turned into a short-term opportunity. Life was moving forward, which should have felt easy. But there was one thing I hadn't told Claire. The production company had offered me a summer assistant position. It wasn't permanent. It wasn't a huge career breakthrough. But it was exactly the kind of experience I wanted. The only problem was the location. It was in another city. Only for the summer. Still, I hesitated. Not because I didn't want it. I did. Because a small part of me wondered whether accepting it would create the same problem we had already solved. Would people think I was leaving? Would Claire think I was choosing something else? I hated that I was even asking those questions. Claire noticed before I told her. Of course she did. You have something to say, she said. We were sitting outside the theater after school. I looked at her. How do you always know? You become quieter. That's unfair. Why? Because you notice when I'm quiet. Yes. I sighed. The production company offered me a summer position. Claire smiled immediately. That's great. I waited. That was all. No hesitation. No disappointment. You're not surprised? I asked. Should I be? I don't know. Ethan. She looked at me. Did you want this? Yes. Then I'm happy. It sounded simple. But I knew Claire. So I asked. Really? She smiled slightly. You still think I need a reason to support you? I looked away. Maybe I did. I think I'm still learning. I admitted. Learning what? That someone can be happy for me without needing me to stay exactly where I am. Claire was quiet. Then she nodded. That's a good thing to learn. I smiled. Your word. Yes. For once, the future didn't feel like something threatening. It felt like something we could talk about. But then something unexpected happened. The school announced that the theater department wanted to create a permanent student showcase archive. A collection of performances, documentaries, and creative projects from graduating students. The faculty advisor asked Claire and me to help organize the first version. At first, I thought it would be simple. It wasn't, because everyone wanted something different. Some students wanted the archive to focus on the biggest achievements, the awards, the famous performances, the moments everyone already knew. Claire disagreed. We shouldn't only preserve what got attention, she said. I understood immediately. She was thinking about the same thing I always cared about, the stories people missed. During the first meeting, a student asked, but if people don't recognize those projects, why include them? The room became quiet. I expected Claire to answer. She didn't. She looked at me. And I understood. She wanted me to answer. Not because she couldn't. Because she trusted me. I stood up. Because recognition isn't the only reason something matters. I looked around the room. A lot of people create things that never become famous. A pause. But that doesn't mean those things were meaningless. The room stayed quiet. Then another student nodded. And slowly, the discussion changed. After the meeting, Claire and I walked outside. You planned that. I said. What? Letting me answer. She shook her head. No. You knew I would say something. Yes. That's basically planning. She smiled. Maybe. I looked at her. You've changed. So have you. How? You used to worry people wouldn't see you. And now? Now you speak because you have something to say. That meant more than she knew. A few days later, we finished the archive proposal. It was approved. Not because Claire's name opened doors. Not because my work needed her support. Because the idea itself was good. That mattered. The final school week arrived. Everyone was preparing for graduation. I knew what that meant. Another chance for people to make everything dramatic. But this time, I wasn't worried. On the last day before graduation, Claire asked me to meet her at the theater. The building was empty. The stage lights were off. The same place where this all started. You wanted to see me? I asked. Yes. She handed me something. A small card. I opened it. It was the first rule list she wrote when we started. Rule 1. No lying beyond the situation itself. Rule 2. Stop if either person becomes uncomfortable. Rule 3. Talk honestly afterward. I smiled. You kept this? Yes. Why? She looked at the paper. Because I thought these rules were for pretending. And now I think they were the rules for something real. I looked at her. For once, I didn't need to find the perfect answer. I just said, I'm glad I asked you. Claire smiled. Even though your plan was terrible? Especially because of that. She laughed. Then she looked at me seriously. Ethan. Yeah? Thank you for asking me to pretend. I smiled. That's a strange thing to thank someone for. I know. Why? Claire looked around the theater. Because if you hadn't asked, I might never have realized I was allowed to choose something without knowing the ending. That was the most Claire thing she had ever said. And somehow, it was also the most honest. The fake girlfriend request lasted one day. But the choice that came from it lasted much longer. Graduation week arrived quietly. That surprised me. After everything that happened during the year, I expected the final days at Westbridge Academy to feel bigger, more dramatic. Like there should be some obvious moment where everyone understood that something important had changed. But there wasn't. There were just classrooms being cleaned, teachers returning old assignments, students signing yearbooks, people making plans for the future, life moving forward. Maybe that was the strange thing about growing up. The biggest changes often happened before anyone noticed. My summer position with the production company was confirmed. 3 months. A different city. A chance to learn from people who had been doing what I loved for years. Claire's summer schedule was different too. She would continue preparing for the regional arts program and help the school archive project transition to next year's students. Different paths. Again. But this time, it didn't feel like something threatening. It felt normal. Everyone is acting like graduation means everything changes overnight. Claire said. We were sitting outside the theater. The same place where we had talked about leaving. The same place where we had talked about staying. Doesn't it? I asked. She thought about it. No. 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 I smiled. That sounds like something you've already decided. I have. Of course you have. She ignored that. People think a new place creates a new person. And you disagree? Yes. Why? Because you bring yourself with you. I looked at her. That was probably the biggest difference between the Claire I met and the Claire sitting beside me. The old Claire wanted to make sure everything was perfect before moving forward. The new Claire understood that moving forward was what made people grow. On graduation morning, I arrived early. I expected the campus to be empty. It wasn't. Students were everywhere, taking pictures, saying goodbye, laughing about memories they would probably miss later. Noah found me near the entrance. You're actually smiling. I looked at him. That's your observation? Yes. Interesting. I'm serious. He looked toward the crowd. Remember when you asked Claire Valmont to fake date you? I laughed. Please don't remind me. Why? Because it was a terrible idea. Noah shook his head. Actually, it was the best terrible idea I've ever seen. Before I could answer, Claire walked over. She was wearing her graduation gown. No dramatic entrance. No crowd. No announcement. Just Claire. Hi. She said. Hi. Noah looked between us. I'm leaving. You don't have to. I said. Yes, I do. And he walked away before we could argue. Claire looked at me. He is very obvious. He thinks he's subtle. He isn't. I know. We both laughed. For a moment, everything felt simple. Not because nothing was changing. Because we had stopped fighting change. Are you nervous? I asked. Claire nodded. Yes. That surprised me. You? Yes. Really? She smiled. Really? About graduation? No. Then what? She looked around. This part ending. I understood. Because even when you're ready for the next chapter, it doesn't mean you aren't grateful for the current one. After the ceremony, everyone gathered outside. Phones, photos, families, friends, the usual chaos. Someone called Claire's name. Someone called mine. For once, nobody was asking if we were together. Nobody needed an explanation. Later that afternoon, Claire and I returned to the theater one last time. The room was empty. No audience. No stage lights. No performance. Just us. I thought about something. Claire said, "What?" "The first time you asked me to be your fake girlfriend." I smiled. "You mean the worst plan ever?" "Yes." "Good." She laughed. "You're using my word again." "I know." She looked around. "You asked me because you wanted people to stop seeing you through someone else." I nodded. "Yeah. But I think I needed something too." I waited. Claire rarely spoke unless she meant something. I needed someone who would ask me to choose. I looked at her. Choose what? Anything. That answer was more powerful than I expected. Because Claire had spent years being chosen. For teams. For leadership roles. For opportunities. But being selected by others was different from making your own choice. "And what did you choose?" I asked. She smiled. "You." Simple. No audience. No dramatic announcement. No need to prove anything. Just the answer. I smiled. "That's not very Ice Queen of you." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? You're supposed to be mysterious." "I have never been mysterious." "Everyone thinks you are." "Everyone is wrong sometimes." I laughed. Before we left, Claire stopped near the door. "Ethan." "Yeah?" She held out a small envelope. "Another rule list?" "No." I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Not of us. It was a picture of the empty theater stage. On the back was a sentence. "The best things are not the ones we plan perfectly. They are the ones we choose after the plan changes." I smiled. "You really like keeping memories." "Yes." "Why?" Claire looked at the stage. "Because memories remind us that we were there." I folded the picture carefully. Then we walked out together. Not because people were watching. Not because anyone needed proof. Because we wanted to. Months later, when people asked how Claire Valmont and I started dating, I stopped giving them the short answer. I didn't say, "She agreed to fake date me." Because that wasn't really what happened. The fake part lasted one day. The real part started when neither of us needed an audience anymore. And maybe that was the strangest thing about the girl everyone called the school ice queen. She was never someone who needed to be won. She was someone who needed to be understood. And somehow, the person who asked her to pretend for one day became the person she chose for everything after. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.